Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome to another edition of Inside Arsenal. It is Friday. I hope you're all well and looking forward to the weekend. A weekend that, of course, features an Arsenal game over the United States, taking on Manchester United in New York. And if you're going to be watching that over here, it's a slightly more friendly kickoff time for you, 10 p.m. I think that gets underway, which I only noticed yesterday as I was looking at it. I thought, God, I'm out tomorrow night for my mate's leaving do in London. Probably going to be on my way home back then after a fair few beers, shall we say. Odds on me sort of getting through that without falling asleep, pretty slim, I would say, but who knows? I'm certainly going to give it a try. Looking forward to trying to watch it anyway, trying to keep myself awake. Anyway, I'm not old, not 21 anymore. A few beers for 40-year-old tends to end in disaster. When I say disaster, I mean sleep. But anyway, enough about that. We will talk about that game a little bit later on in this episode. Take a look at who might feature. Certainly a few interesting one for Mikel Arteta when it comes to that team selection. But we'll start with a few sort of transfer bits and pieces doing around. I wanted to start on Cedric Soares, who, of course, didn't make the trip over to the USA for the squad. He was left out of the squad by Mikel Arteta, and from my understanding, that is very much the sort of prompt for Cedric Soares to look to get a move this summer pretty quickly. I think him and his people saw that as a bit of a clear message from Mikel in terms of where he stood in the pecking order this season and where his chances of getting any game time stood. And they are now very much actively looking to get him a move before the window shuts. Now, there is interest from him in the Premier League, couple of clubs, from what I understand. He obviously spent the second half last season on loan at Fulham. Didn't exactly tear it up at Fulham by any means. Struggled again for game time there, even under Marco Silva, who was so keen to bring him in from Arsenal. So I say probably doubtful he's going to head back there, especially with a lot of doubts over Marco Silva's future at the moment, who of course has been who is very much on the agenda for one of the big Saudi clubs. Can't remember which Saudi club it is now, who are after him. But if he ends up going, I think that's certainly the end of Cedric Soares' chance of going back to Craven Cottage. Villarreal, a club who are very interested in Cedric. From my understanding, they were interested in him in January as well. He opted to go to Fulham, but that interest from Villarreal remains. And there has been sort of informal talks as well with the three big Portuguese clubs, as in Sporting, Benfica, and Porto. I think it's fairly obvious, isn't it, that Cedric Soares' future is not at Arsenal. Whether they can get a deal done, whether anyone comes in and puts some money on the table for Cedric, or whether it's just basically going to end up being a bit of a free transfer type thing. He has got a year left in his contract, and any move obviously will be permanent. It's not going to be a loan move now, but it's just a case of whether Arsenal get a transfer fee for him or just, waive any sort of transfer fee, even have to end up cancelling his contract and then allowing him to move somewhere on a permanent basis. We shall wait and see. I imagine all scenarios are on the table at the moment. He's on a decent wage, Cedric Soares. He's not one of the top earners at Arsenal, but he's on a decent wage. That 4-year contract he secured when he made the move in 2020 it was, wasn't he? Came over in January 2020 on loan and turned permanent in the summer as one of Arteta's or one of the first signings of the Arteta era, him and Pablo Mari coming in that January. Got himself a 4-year deal, very good deal. For him, he's still got a year left of that, and he's getting paid pretty well. So whether any other club, especially if he goes to a non-Premier League club, can afford those wages, you kind of look at it and think that's probably a little bit doubtful. So they might have to end up coming to an agreement with him, Arsenal. But we shall wait and see on that. I think the one certainty is that his future isn't Arsenal. But let me know what you guys think about that. I'm pretty sure, the general consensus is from everyone that Cedric needs a move. He needs to go and play somewhere. He's not going to get that game time at Arsenal. So best for all parties should a agreement be reached. So if I find out any more on that, and if that continues to move on, then I'll, of course, keep you updated as the summer progresses. Okay, Ivan Fresneda is a player who's been linked with Arsenal, who I've spoken about several times before on this channel. Young right back, very highly rated, talented player. Arsenal were very, very keen on him in January. The move, at one point I thought they were going to sign him. I thought it was going to happen. It didn't. I think Arsenal looked at it and thought, maybe he's a little bit young. And I think Fresneda as well looked at it with his people and they were like, we're going to see out the season at Valladolid, and then we're going to have another assess of things in the summer, and that's what they are doing right now. As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's any interest from Arsenal now this summer. It's been linked with a lot of clubs I've seen. I think I saw him linked with Bournemouth the other day, which I'm not sure if there's any truth in that, but I saw him linked with Bournemouth, and a few other clubs are supposed to be looking at him. But I don't believe that Arsenal are now one of them. They were interested in January, but they opted not to make that move. And I think now, obviously, look, they've signed Jurrien Timber, who looks one hell of a player, one hell of a signing, and he's coming in to play in that right back role and to be sort of the competition for Ben White. And so I suggest that interest in Fresneda has moved on. I've had quite a few questions about him, about whether Arsenal are going to go back in for him. So that's my understanding on the situation when it comes to the young Spanish right back, who I do probably think will move this summer. But yeah, not to Arsenal. And reports over in Italy talking about Folarin Balogun, saying that they have now focus their attention on Balogun. They've opted not to go for Morata. Morata, when you add up his transfer fees over the years, remarkable for a player who I've just never really understood. I mean, he's had a good career, make no mistake about it, but just never quite understood Morata. Wherever I've watched him, just thought, yeah, you're all right, but you miss loads of chances. You're not really top level quality, but you add up the transfer fees he's gone for over the years. That's remarkable. But anyway, Inter apparently have now decided not to go for Morata, and they've focused their attention on Balogun, which will be interesting to say the least as the summer progresses. Now, Arsenal, as I've spoken about before, look at Balogun and want around £50 million for him. I cannot imagine that Inter Milan will go for £50 million. I'm sure they're going to try and if they do firm up their offer, their interest to make a firm offer, I cannot imagine it's going to be close to that number. And so, yeah, if there's going to be negotiations following on from that, I imagine they're not going to be too easy for Inter to get close to the sort of money that Arsenal want. As I've spoken about before, maybe there can be some sort of compromise reached with an attractive looking buyback clause. I think for Balogun, it would be a really good move. I mean, look, they're a fantastic club. They're a huge club. They're the Champions League finalists. If he could go there and be their number 9 as young as he is, I mean, wow, what an opportunity that is for him. And he's a confident boy as well, really, really backs his own ability. So I don't think he'd be too phased by going to a club like Inter Milan and playing in the San Siro in front of that amount of crowd. I think, it's probably something he'd thrive upon, but it would be very, very interesting to see how he got on at that level. As I've said again, I'm sure Arsenal would much prefer some Premier League interest so that they can get a lot closer to the sort of transfer fee that they would want for Balogun, who spoke about his future after the game against the All-Stars on Wednesday morning our time. And, again, he sort of reiterated, look, there's nothing I can do. I'm here. I'm liking being here. I'll leave all that stuff to my agent and my family and Arsenal. And, they've still got 2 more games of this tour. He's going to be over there for the end of this tour. I think once they come back, we're really going to see things heat up when it comes to Balogun and his future. As I've mentioned, I still think the likelihood is that he will end up going and that Eddie will stay, and it'll be Eddie and Jesus and Havertz as a kind of 3 forwards for Arsenal, and Trossard as well, of course, making that number 4. And I just think Balogun feels to me a lot more likely that he ends up going, but we shall wait and see. Let me know as always. All right, I really enjoyed this. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see what I'm talking about. If you're listening to it and you haven't seen it yet, go and check out Kai Havertz's social media, his Twitter. I really enjoyed this little message to the haters, shall we say. Now, the story behind this, if you can see what you're watching and what I'm showing on YouTube, obviously you've got Kai Havertz showing a picture of his goal in the game against the All-Stars with the caption, "Have that," a target emoji, and then a yawning face emoji. That is a big message to the haters, to the internet keyboard warriors who are all having a go at him because he didn't score in that skills volley and cross challenge thing the night before the All-Stars game, which was just ridiculous that he started getting grief and people were jumping on him. It wasn't Arsenal fans, to be honest. It was rival fans, Chelsea fans, things like that, who were doing it. But it just did make me laugh that he then comes on in the game against All-Stars and goes and wallops in a brilliant volley from across. And yeah, I really enjoyed him taking to social media and having a little pop back. And then he added it on the second picture of him celebrating the goal, saying, "But in all seriousness, really nice feeling to get my first goal for Arsenal. Thank you to the fans for the amazing support this week." And I do think it was important. I think you saw in his face, I certainly got that impression when I watched the celebration. There was definitely a little sense of relief in the face. And there would be, if you're coming for big money, you want to get off the on target pretty soon. Obviously, this is not a competitive game, so it doesn't count as an official goal, but it's still just a nice thing to sort of get that weight off your shoulders, score a goal, really nice goal as well. Lovely strike in that exact position where you look at Havertz and think that's where you're going to be really key for Arsenal, sort of drifting in a little bit late to the box, possibly picking up those positions a little bit unmarked because the defenders haven't picked you up, and then finishing. And that's going to be so important for Arsenal and for Kai Havertz this season. So good to see him get off the mark, and I really enjoyed that little dig he had on social media. Seems like a really good character, actually, because obviously I didn't follow him or anything like that, any of his channels when he was at Chelsea, because, well, why would I? But now he's at Arsenal, I have, and he seems to have got a decent, if it is him, of course, and most of this is social media companies and his representatives doing it or handling it on social media, but I do enjoy his social media. I think it's pretty good. So yeah, give him a follow if you don't. Okay, quickly, before we get to your questions, obviously this is a player that Arsenal have been heavily linked with in the past, Moussa Diaby, by Leverkusen winger. Player a lot of people seem to want at Arsenal, player that I kind of want at Arsenal. I think signing a right winger is absolutely essential before the end of the transfer window. I really, really do. I've spoken about it before, whether that be Diaby, whether it be anyone else. But, Diaby's certainly high up there. He's one of the players who always got the sense was available this summer for the right price. But, Arsenal have been focusing on other areas, and now it looks like he's on his way to Aston Villa. Arsenal never bid for Diaby or anything like that. He's definitely been a player that they've had on their radar. And, why wouldn't he be? If you're looking for a right winger, he's been one of the most informed right wingers in Europe for the last couple of seasons. Been very good for Leverkusen, and he's off to Aston Villa. It looks like he's rejected a big money move to Saudi Arabia as well. Fair play to him for that. And is heading to Aston Villa, who Unai and Monchi are building a very good, impressive squad at Villa Park. Looks like they're going to be real sort of contenders next season, certainly for the European places, if not a little bit higher. Finished the season very well last season, of course, under Unai Emery. And some of these additions they're making are pretty good. Pau Torres, of course, has already come in. Now looks like Moussa Diaby, 50 million euros plus another 10 million euros in add-ons, according to Fabrizio Romano. Villa want to get it signed and sealed as soon as possible. So that's one potential right winger off the list for Arsenal. It'll be interesting to see what they do as we get later on in the window, and once they've moved a few players on, who they do turn to. I'd still be surprised if they don't make a move in that area, but we shall have to wait and see, because who's going to be available? That's the big thing. Diaby was one potential option, but he's not available anymore. So who will they turn to? Time will tell on that one. Okay, quickly looking ahead to the game against United on Saturday night. It's right to say it. I was going to say Saturday night, Sunday morning, but our time it is not. It's 10 p.m. kickoff, so it'll be finished, provided there's not too much injury time before Sunday morning. And who might start? Now, this was a starting 11 we saw start against the All-Stars. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see what I'm talking about. Is Ramsdale, and the back four of White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Kivior, of course, playing at left back again instead of Kieran Tierney or Zinchenko. Midfield, you had Jorginho, then you had Trossard in that left 8 role, Vieira in the Odegaard right 8 role, and then up front you had Saka, Jesus, and Eddie Nketiah out wide. I suggest we might see a little bit of a different starting 11 for this one against Manchester United, because I wonder if Odegaard's going to come in. Depends on his fitness, of course. He picked up that slight little issue before the Nuremberg game. Clearly nothing too serious, because he did come on in the game against All-Stars. So I wonder if we'll see Odegaard in the midfield. Leandro Trossard, we'll have to wait and see. He limped off in the All-Stars game. I believe Mikel Arteta will be speaking to the press today over in the States. And so we should get a little bit of an update from him on what's going on with Trossard at the moment. And, Arsenal aren't going to take any risks with him. So if there is a slight knock, they'll have to change something over there on the left-hand side. Emile Smith-Rowe is now out there. Thomas Partey is now out there. So those two could come into contention for this one. Partey should be fine. Obviously, been playing in pre-season, played in the Nuremberg game. So even though he missed the All-Stars match, fitness-wise, he should be fine to feature. So he could come into the reckoning. Declan Rice, could Declan Rice get his first start, or Kai Havertz get his first start? So I think we'll see difference. Martinelli as well. Obviously, Eddie Nketiah played out on the left. So, but Martinelli came on, scored his goal. He's getting closer and closer now to full fitness. So we could see Martinelli. I just think in these two games now, the Man United and the Barcelona game, as we head towards coming back to England, when preparations will really step up for the new season, we're going to see Mikel start going a little bit stronger and going with it and getting towards the kind of 11 that we expect to see start the season. So I think we'll see a few changes from the team that started against the All-Stars. Like I said, I reckon Odegaard, Martinelli, Havertz or Rice, those sort of players could well come into contention for that one. And we'll wait and see in terms of Zinchenko if he's anywhere near ready to get some minutes yet. Hopefully he is, because it'd be really, really important to get some minutes into his legs ahead of the new season. Okay, let's quickly move on to some of your questions and comments before we end this episode. Now, there's a few here if you're watching this on YouTube, from Yevon, from, I can't even see something, Goated, and Titus Schalk by the looks of it. And they're all talking about Leandro Trossard. And I had other ones as well that I couldn't fit into this, but he was a very big topic of discussions in the comment section from yesterday's video. Leandro Trossard, of course, scored that excellent goal in the All-Stars game, and put in an impressive display before he limped off. And everyone's saying the same thing. Like, he got here from Yevon. Hello, Charles. Who would you have in that advanced number 8 role, Trossard or Havertz? Personally, I'd have Trossard over anyone else in the Arsenal squad. I feel he's been so underrated. And the ones underneath that, so I know we have lots of shiny new toys, but I hope Trossard does not get overlooked in every preseason training video. He looks to be busting a gut to impress, and he was excellent last night. Thought Arteta shuffled him out at the starting 11 too quickly in the run-in when Jesus was fit again. I think Trossard probably feels he has something to prove. Really hope he's unhurt and gets his chance. And another one here saying, call me crazy, but I believe if Odegaard ever, God forbid, got injured, the only person who could semi-replicate what he gives us is Trossard. That's how good he is. He's a gem of a player. And like I said, there was other comments about Trossard as well. And I agree with them all 100%. I think he's really, really underrated. I think he was so impressive in the second half of last season. As I said in yesterday's video, he's very, very unlucky. He could have easily scored 5 or 6 goals in that period, whereas an Arsenal player in the second half last season. He was really unfortunate in front of goal, kept hitting the woodwork, had that goal ruled out against Leicester. We saw what he can do from outside the box with the goal he scored against All-Stars. Loves shooting from distance. You know, one of the few players in the Arsenal squad, aside from Thomas Partey, who obviously tends to hit the corner flag. But Trossard, you know, he's really, really good. He tends to get shots really close to, if not on target, really close to being on target from outside the area. He's a real threat with the ball. Obviously, his assist record spoke for itself last season after he came in at Arsenal. Technically, he's excellent. And yeah, I really hope he still has a huge part to play this season. I think he will, no doubt about it. I think Mikel does really like him, and I agree with that comment. He said he was probably shuffled out the team a little bit early last season, which is probably right. I mean, it's all in hindsight. I think when Jesus got back fit, we were all really excited to have Jesus back, but obviously didn't quite hit the ground running, although he scored a few goals. I don't think he was quite as good as he was before the injury. And Trossard just offers the team so much, that creative threat, that ability to play out wide, that the ability he's got with both feet, which means he can come inside and just defenders struggle to pick him up because they don't know which way he's going to go, because he's equally as comfortable on his left as he is on his right. And it's just a really technically excellent player, and I really hope he does play a lot this season, whether that be on the left, whether that be as a false 9, or whether that be in one of the number 8 positions. I think he can play them all because he's that good. So thank you very much for your questions and comments there. Here's one from Spinxinator 1997 saying, hi, Charles. Having watched the video showing all Timber's involvements in the game, it seems as though he is basically a right-sided Zinchenko in regards to positions he takes up on the pitch. Do you think Arteta would have the audacity to play them both? It'd be very attack-minded. He looked really good and he'd be trusted in game time. It'd be strange dynamic if Timber winning a place in the side meant Zinchenko lost his. Yeah, I think there's certainly the potential to play them both. You know, I'm not the most tactically astute person in the world, and the people that I speak to who are far better when it comes to football tactics than me, they think there's a good chance that they can play there together, just because of yes, sort of defensively, you might leave yourself a little bit short down the flanks, but because you could have Timber and Zinchenko in that central area sort of inverting at the same time, that should give you an awful lot more control in that central area. It might leave you a little bit light at the back, but you'd have so much dominance in the central area that it might not matter because you should have the ball more often than not. And also with Declan Rice sitting there, that gives you the option that Declan Rice can just drop in, sort of split the 2 centre-backs, and that would allow the 2 full-backs to come in and invert, and you'd still have Rice, Saliba and Gabriel sort of back there covering the goal. And, you know, the pace and the quality you have with those 3 sort of combined, I think you still feel fairly safe, even if someone did get down the flank into the space vacated by the fullback. Saliba's got the pace, Gabriel's got the pace to really get over there and cover pretty well. So I think there is definitely the option to play that. But I think the exciting thing about Timber is it's just the versatility, and it's you can play Timber, you can play White, and they just, there's just no drop off in quality there by the looks of it. And I think that's a really good thing for Arsenal. So yeah, it's a really exciting signing. I can't wait to see him play more. So thank you very much for your question there, Spinxinator. And here's one from Muddy. I can't pronounce that. I don't want to get it wrong. So apologies. But thank you very much for your comment here. Said, thought Marquinhos had a good cameo and assist. Thought of him staying around. Thoughts on him staying around next season? I think he's been good so far in pre-season. Yeah, I noticed it was a lovely pick out for him for the Havertz goal against the All-Stars. He has looked pretty bright so far. But no, look, I think for Marquinhos, he needs to play. He's at that age he needs to play, and I just don't think he's going to play if he sticks around at Arsenal. So I don't see any benefit of him sticking around. I don't see any benefit for Arsenal, really. And I don't really see any benefit for Marquinhos. He just needs to go and play regularly. If he doesn't play regularly, he'd be pretty rusty. When he does get the few opportunities he would get at Arsenal, I don't think he'd be any sort of position to come on and make much of an impact because he just wouldn't have played enough to be at the top of his game. So I think he needs to go out, have a season on loan, and I do fully expect that's what's going to happen. And that's it. Oh, last slide that was. So that's it for today. So thank you very much for all your questions and your comments as usual. Anything you've agreed with, disagreed with in this video, please do let me know if you're watching this on YouTube by leaving a comment below, and I'll try and get you involved in tomorrow's videos. Have a very good day, everyone. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your Friday night out if you're going out tonight, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.